Well, Yaser Alashqar is an assistant professor in conflict studies and Middle East politics at the Trinity College in Dublin and joins us now. Good to have you with us. Let me ask you, first of all, about the discussion and row that's going on over the bombing of that media building in Gaza, the fact that Israel says there was a Hamas office inside the building. Many calls now for an independent investigation. What do you make of that?
Well, what I can see is there is a systematic targeting by the Israeli military of civilian buildings in Gaza, and that is problematic. And we have seen that since 2008. And this is not acceptable, and it needs to be dealt with. There is no accountability at the international level. Israel gets away with it, and this is against the international law. So we need to be clear on this. The targeting of civilians and also civilian buildings in Gaza has to stop. These are war crimes according to international law. And this is systematic, and it's been going on, as I said, since 2008. We've seen it 2008, 2014, 2012, and now 2022, 2021. We're seeing that again. So that's problematic. It needs to stop. It's against international law. I mean, we also haven't seen any evidence from the Israeli government that suggests clearly, or from the UN as an international organization, that suggests clearly that Hamas was using those buildings. We haven't seen any evidence. And regardless, targeting civilian buildings and civilians in Gaza is against international law, and it is a war crime.
And once again, we see the international community condemning the violence, criticising the loss of civilian life, and yet there seems to be an inability to bring it to an end. What should the international community be doing now to end the violence?
Well, as I said earlier, the problem is accountability. That is the problem. There is, the Israeli military is using a lot of force, a lot of violence, a lot of attacks, military attacks against Gaza and against the civilian population of Gaza. And Israel gets away with it. The question is why.
But as long as the US does not continues to refuse to openly condemn Israel, nothing's going to happen, is it?
Oh, absolutely. And that was my next point. The question is why Israel gets away with it at the international level without accountability. It's because exactly what you said, the US supports Israel, and Israel is a strategic ally of the US. So the US provides protection for Israel, and that's why Israel gets away with it. The second reason is the EU. The European countries as well, they support international law everywhere, but when it comes to Palestine, they are silent, and that's not acceptable.
What about organisations like the OIC or other countries like Qatar, for example, that have influence in the region? Could they bring influence to bear on the situation?
I think, the role of Qatar, the role of Turkey, the role of Egypt, it's all very important because all of these countries have relations with Hamas, and they also have relations with Israel. In particular, Qatar and Egypt, they have a strong relationship with the political leadership of Hamas, and that is very important. At the same time, the Arab countries who've signed recent normalization deals with the state of Israel, they need to bring pressure. They need to put pressure on Israel, and they need to use their influence. But so far, we haven't seen that, and that is problematic. So Israel is getting away with that. The Gaza people are alone, and the Gaza people are facing oppression and repression, and this needs to stop.
Yaser Alashqar, thank you very much indeed for joining us.